Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastos, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here. This is an inspirational program filled with all kinds of positivity. And my guests, you've been watching and you've been listening. They have things to talk about that I think inspire us in many ways and gives us a good perspective on life. And life is to be lived. Life is to be enjoyed in any way we can. And I happen to like traveling. My family and I, wife, children, everybody, we've been traveling for a long time. My dad actually was in the travel business back in Boston. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But, travel is so important because it's educational. To me, it's cultural. It's enlightening. It's enriching in many ways. And it's good for the whole family, particularly for children. I think children have a lot to learn about culture and diversity and the kind of things that I feel, make them a better person and happen to enjoy life a little bit more as they go along. But I want to introduce you now to somebody who's fantastic. You know her face. In fact, we're going to put her on the air right now. Hey, can we put her on the air? This is Kathy McCabe. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Hi, Ernie. So happy to be here
Kathy,
with you.
So good to see you. A lot of people are looking at you and they're saying, I know who that is, but I have to tell them that you are the guest host, I should say the host, not the guest, but you are the host, the executive producer of the award-winning travel series Dream of Italy on PBS and also on Create TV. You're an amazing person. You've been doing so many wonderful things. I love to travel. You love to travel. Let me ask you something. What inspired you to get into this?
Well, I was, before we came on, I was fangirling, Ernie, because I grew up in New Jersey and you are part of the family. You are part of my childhood. I watched ABC every night. My mom was cooking dinner. And I eventually, my first job was as a desk assistant for Peter Jennings at ABC.
Peter Jennings. Oh, wow.
You
what
are
a classy man.
Oh, yeah. You are part of my story of wanting to present and tell stories on television. So I have to thank you and tell you.
How nice is that?
I've interviewed Sting, Andrea Bocelli. They got nothing on. I was more excited about Ernie Anastos.
Oh, Kathy, you're making my day.
No, because it's that in those days, it was one of the most important relationships, trust. Yes. And you are part of our community. Going back to the question.
Well, thank you for all those accolades. I really appreciate that. And you've done well too. That's for sure.
I know a lot of people feel that way. I've told all my friends from New Jersey, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk to Ernie.
Yay.
So traveling, I got a shout out to my late parents who were big fans. I feel like they're here right now. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to talk to Ernie Anastos.
Oh, they were quite an inspiration too, by the way, your parents. And I know they passed away very short time, right?
20 months apart.
Wow.
But I have to tell you what they did for me, which many people may remember. You'll figure out how old I am. There was a new airline called People Express.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother decided, well, let's take Kathy. I was 10 years old to London. And those days you would call up and reserve the seats. And this was what kind of person my mother was. I'm trying to remember her name. She talked to this woman to book this. I think her name was Amelia, to book the seats. When we came back, she invited her over to dinner at her house and she came.
Really?
Yeah. Like my mom was just making
very personal. Yeah.
Everyone, you would have loved her. And so that was my first trip abroad. And I fell in love with England, with Europe. I majored in European studies. But my grandparents, who would also be thrilled that I was talking to Ernie Anastos, were Italian American. I went to their house every day. I know this is similar to like the Greek American experience.
Sure.
And I fell in love with all that is Italy. And so every time I then went to Italy, when I first went in my early 20s, I felt like I was in my grandparents' home.
Oh, yeah. How personal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still do. I feel like I'm, back with them in some way because it's so similar. So that's my very first, how I got to loving travel and
So
why
it became it became part of your history, of your family.
Yeah.
And your early experiences in traveling and understanding, what we talked about at the very beginning, how enriching it is, how much you learn about, the world, and you learn about interaction of people. I think that's fabulous. I mean, you've done all this traveling. We're going to talk about Italy for now, because I know you're expanding into Europe. But from all the travels that you've done in Italy, and I've been to several cities there. I mean, Rome is beautiful. Venice is fantastic. So many different places. Do you have a favorite? That's kind of a tough question. Is there a favorite place in Italy? Florence is beautiful too.
The one that belongs in my heart is my ancestral hometown. It's a little town called Castelvetere Solcolore. It's in Irpinia in the Avellino province. And Ernie, I have a saying: all roads lead back to Avellino or New Jersey.
I like that.
And even Tony Soprano was from Avellino. So that's where my roots are. I love it there. But my gosh, it's hard to choose a favorite. I also have a place in Western Tuscany called Maremma Saturnia. It is where the ancient Romans went to these hot springs. Wow. And I go there to sort of ground myself and get ready for, taking on life again.
Sure.
That's my hideaway, but it's impossible to choose because there's so much that's incredible about Italy. But I got to tell you, in the new show, there's 2 episodes on Greece.
Oh, really? This is the Dream of Europe now, right?
Dream of Europe. It's premiering in January.
Right.
7 episodes. We go all over Europe. What we do is the same kind of thing as Dream of Italy. So the things that we do them in a different way, or we go to places that are totally unusual. And so we're going to the Greek islands, Athens, London, the French Alps, Malta, and Albania, which are really
man, what a itinerary that is. That sounds wonderful.
But the food, I mean, I just ate so much feta.
I'm glad you said the food, because no matter where you go, you're talking about food in these countries that just stand out. It's just fabulous.
So I went, and it's in one of the episodes, we went to a family farm. They also have glamping, but really cool glamping, high-end. Yeah. And she teaches Greek cooking. And yes, I've been to Italy a million times. I think that was some of the freshest flavors. I'm still tasting the chicken.
Yeah, the food is fabulous.
Because in Europe, everything tastes like it's supposed to taste.
Right. Very natural in many ways.
The olive
and
oil, the
lemon.
Lemon.
Oh, goodness.
So,
Making me
so much
hungry.
of travel is that eating experience.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think when people do travel, I mean, that's one of the first things they remember. Okay, the food. No matter where you go, it's something that you had that was particular to that region, and you enjoy it. And I think that talking to the people, I think the interaction with people. Do you speak Italian?
I get by. I do.
You get by.
I butcher it because I don't know the verbs are tough, but they understand and they appreciate it, and they light up because I really try.
Of course. But Kathy, we have these apps now, right? I mean, it's so easy to just go in there and you start talking to somebody on your phone, right? And it just translates it for you.
I think travel has become accessible and desirable by many more people than ever. They're less scared. There's more tools, there's more ways to do it. And I think after COVID, everyone's like, you see it in the numbers of people traveling this revenge. We got to live now. And, my parents, my mother didn't let dust gather underneath her. I always think of her like my mother would kick my butt if I did not keep going. So I just keep in motion and travel. And what a pistol. Yeah. And, so it helps to deal with all the things that are not easy in life. I think.
Exactly. And Kathy, when we're talking about travel, and there have been some issues with transportation and security and so forth, but I think that's eased up in some ways, that people are just saying, as you pointed, post-COVID, it's like, look, I need to live my life. Yes. And I need to get out there and to enjoy, everything that's available to me. And I think that's very good. In terms of planning, okay, with all of your trips, How early do you think people should plan a trip? Okay. Some say, plan at the last minute, you get a great deal. How do you feel about that?
Well, do as my father would say.
Yeah.
Don't do as I do as I say.
Okay.
I'm a last minute traveler, but I'm doing it a lot for work. If you are going anywhere near the summer, even May, the shoulder season, everybody is going, book now, like now. Don't wait till January. If you're going to Europe or Italy, it is packed. So I recommend get the tickets, get the basics. You can always add and move things around. But these days, planning early really, really helps. It definitely does.
Planning early, yeah. The other thing about traveling these days, especially, and there was a time when we didn't have our phones with cameras.
Oh,
now, people are taking pictures all the time and posting them so that everybody can see their friends and so forth. That really has changed the travel experience for a lot of people now, being able to take photographs, right, instantly and just to send them out.
It has. Remember those postcards? I don't know where I was. And I was like, I should send a postcard just for the heck of it. Yeah, I think we're much more in sort of a community of travelers. And I find it interesting. Some people want to go to, say, Positano, so famous. Right. Some people want to go where they've seen that iconic shot, right? Mm-hmm. But then what I also try to provide with my shows, I also have a magazine, is here's something your neighbor hasn't done, your friend hasn't done. That's different. So we all kind of appeal that. So there's a lot of psychology behind travel. And I think anticipation is this huge part of it, but so is memory. Like I have, when I looked yesterday, I was waiting for a doctor. I was looking through my favorites, photos, so many memories.
So many memories. I know. And I did a question on the street recently asking people, how many pictures do you have on your phone? We're talking about big numbers, 30,000.
I might have 60,000.
So there you go.
I take a lot for work. And and so it's so different because I've been looking to see, gosh, do I have a photo from that trip? I have to go through boxes. That trip to London when I was 10. Right. You just had that one or two photos. So, but there's great benefits to having all of this and just sharing it. And travel makes us, I think, connect more, and we can use that really.
Yeah.
More.
Kathy, you've had a great success with your show, a couple of decades, and you're doing great. It's a hit show. And now you're going to go on to, Dream of Europe. What do you attribute the success to? I mean, you are the personality. Obviously, you end up driving the bus and you show people around and you give them that personality. That's so important. Give us a feeling of what makes for your success in doing these travel programs.
Well, if I'm going to look at this, it's very similar, Ernie, to what your success is. I think that we are genuine, authentic people. And I think, I'm not a swimsuit model. I'm getting a couple wrinkles. If you watch closely in our Florence episode, I have a Band-Aid on my finger because I cut myself chopping.
Oh, wow. There you go.
I'm not perfect. I'm just me. And I'm like the friend that the audience wants to travel with. I also, and I see this in your work, of course, I just love it. And you can't fake that. Like, I love it. People are like, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is what I think it is. It's very genuine. When I do interview celebrities, we talk about how much we love Italy. It's not fawning. It's not, oh, you have so many records. It's, God, what a place. What a place.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's common ground.
Of course. What you're talking about is a word that I use often, and it's passion. Passion. Yeah. Okay. You really have to be passionate about what you're doing. And be in love with, on a day-to-day basis to prepare and to be ready for it. I think that's great. You talked about interviewing different personalities. Anybody that stands out in your mind and say, you know what, I interviewed this particular person or these particular groups of people, and I found it fascinating. You want to share any of that with us?
I will. I'll tell you who really had an influence on me, and we kept in touch a little. I hope I meet him again someday. Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, I've interviewed him.
Isn't he something?
Great guy.
He's so deep. He's so intuitive. People don't realize how intuitive he is.
Yeah.
That he really has a handle on things going on many different levels.
Sure.
He's a real person. He loves family. I got to go to, he has a hotel in Southern Italy. I went, it was just for the interview. So I brought my mom. She met him. At the time, his 99-year-old uncle, his 97-year-old aunt.
Oh.
So I felt like part of the family, but I just think, he didn't have the easiest time in everything he created. His great love of family, of the ancestors, of art, of creation.
Sure.
And I had to change my ticket to go a different day. And the first thing he says to me is, I hope that wasn't inconvenient for you. I hope he's a real person.
Gentleman, absolutely.
A gentleman. And, I was so happy to see his new movie come out and to him to be back up there again. And, he's also showing, and a lot of people are showing, age is not what it used to be.
Exactly.
We can do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just getting started. You're just getting started.
Just getting started.
And I think it's important. We're one of these first generations. We have different iterations of our lives.
Sure. Kathy, when I interviewed Francis Ford Coppola several years back, he had a vineyard in either Napa Valley or Sonoma, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that I got from that interview, and I've interviewed, like you have, tons of people, he was humble and sincere, and he was grateful for the success. And he attributed that success to a lot of other people that were part of it, not just himself. I love that, lack of
And this is
ego.
Sometimes missing in today's world. And I got to tell you, probably this is true with the Greeks, the Southern Italians. They're just humble people.
Yeah.
I was sitting in his hotel and my family was from not that far away. And I'm like, oh my God, look, our ancestors left because they were hungry. They needed work. And here I am sitting. It's his love letter to Italy. What I do is my love letter to what would the ancestors think now?
I know. I'm thinking as we talk here, because that's the way I love to do my interviews, just playing off what we're talking about.
Me too.
And today, with the nature and the sense of what's going on in the world, people, are frightened many times by watching the news. It's unfortunate, but we have to deal with what's going on. That's the reality of it. And a lot of people, as you know, research is showing a lot of people are watching like a Hallmark channel, for example, or they're watching, HGTV, Magnolia, whatever, but they're also watching travel, because all of these give us a sense of, call it an escape, but there's a reality to it, and it really makes you feel good.
I have seen that during COVID, I received more emails from people watching the show. It was the #1 American public television distributed show on Amazon because people wanted to dream, to escape, to remember the goodness of the world. And I see it. Hallmark, travel, hope. We are essentially, or almost need to essentially be hopeful, because we have to live. We have to keep going.
Yeah.
So,
and you want to feel good. One of my favorite feel-good movies, by the way, is Under the Tuscan Sun.
Wonderful. I've interviewed Francis, the author. I've been to Brahma Sole. I've even been, there's a different Villa Lara is where they played Brahma Sole in the movie. Cortona is a wonderful place. And Frances is she became a friend of mine. Great interview that she's grateful for the success. People still come by her house every day.
Isn't that wonderful? Kathy, I want to talk about so many different things here. My mind is just jumping everywhere. As a travel expert, okay, and the experience that you've had, if someone's listening, watching us right now and saying, you know what, I want to do something with my children. Tell me a place somewhere, in Europe that you've been to that would be really good for kids, and the benefit that the children will get from traveling to these particular places. Anything that comes to your mind when it involves children?
Rome, ancient Rome. They're teenagers, but I went with my godson and his brother in July, and we explored ancient Rome, Venice, Florence, to really see, I think, this idea of the archaeology, the great length of history, the thousands of years that we don't have in the United States. I think it really gives kids some jumping off points for their dreams. Sure. Also, Italians, much like Greeks, I'm sure, love kids. bring kids to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine gave me this tip years ago. What you try to do is do it like an Italian day. So the
Sure.
Italians kind of take a pause in the afternoon. So that's when you go to the pool with the kids.
Yep.
You can make it work with kids. It's almost like, there's something around every street corner. Just getting a gelato is
You're
like,
right.
oh, wow.
I know.
You don't have to do anything huge. Just
You don't.
eat.
No, and what's also nice about the travel that you're talking about, there's history there. You're talking about Rome, the Colosseum, and when they hear about this and when they read about it in school, if you go to Greece, the Olympics, for example, anywhere where kids can, and they love sports, they love activities.
Oh, yeah.
And so, they learn from all of that. But I think learning about another culture and understanding their history really widens your view of the world. And I think that takes you in a long, long path in life. Really do.
It does. It has for me. And what would I be without travel? It keeps me going.
Another question. When I travel, many times I'll keep a little record of that, a little travelogue, and I just make some notes, but I handwrite it. Rather than doing it, on my iPad or phone and so forth, I find that handwritten is really special. I read years ago that many of our parents, will leave us some photographs and some memories of some sort, something that they wore or whatever they did for their work. But we don't have much of their handwritten material, not much handwriting from our parents. And I remembered that, and I got myself a journal, and it was made specifically for that. And you pass it on to your kids.
My parents did that, but I will tell you, I was cleaning out the house when my mother died, and I found a birthday note, and it was timeless. It could have applied to any, like, we're so proud of you. We're so, and I have this to look at in my mother's handwriting. So I agree with you that I've seen a lot of these journals. The best thing, so the one thing is I did an episode with my parents in Castelvetre, and I got to ask them questions I might not have asked them.
Yeah.
And so I wish I had done more. I have that, like, I can go watch them and they're alive.
Sure.
Everybody can do that these days with their iPhone, with writing. Do it. Because they're always like, oh, why didn't I ask that? Or where did they go when they went on this trip? Or,
exactly.
I think it's important to keep recording everything.
Kathy, we are both storytellers. And that's what it's all about. And when you think about the early days when, my parents would tell me about, their parents, I'd hear stories from my grandparents when they didn't really have access to a lot of the media, and they would sit around and they would talk. They would just gather, the children around, and they would tell stories about where they came from, what their village was like, what their family was like, how they perhaps came to America, and all of that dreaming. All of that, to me, really makes for a rich kind of experience of life. And you can only get that from storytelling. You got to talk to the people.
Yes. And I think about dinners. When you go probably Greece too, you go to Italy, the dinner goes on for hours. Yeah. People are telling stories.
Sure.
That's part of the joy of going to Italy. Unfortunately, when we're in America, we're always running off to the next thing.
Yeah.
You try not to with family dinners and such, but just if you take your kids somewhere and just talk and and the whole reason I went to find my ancestral village was my grandfather would talk about how he wanted to see it. This was his dream. He was taken to the wrong town.
Yes.
I then rectified the mistake and he died the next day.
Oh, wow. See
by
that?
Chance or by not, but it was the stories he would tell at the Christmas dinner table.
Wow.
That, those stick that we all remember them. We're all like, oh yeah, grandpa.
Yeah. There you go. Kathy, I'm going to ask you an offbeat question because we were talking about food, taste and all that experience. Let me ask you this question. Is there a fragrance that you remember in your travels? When we were traveling in the south of France, we went through this beautiful lilac field.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. No, wait a minute. Lavender. I'm sorry. I said lilac.
Right.
Lavender.
Yes, that's what I thought you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, lavender. Unbelievable. And I'll never forget that fragrance that emanated from the earth. It was just beautiful. And there are so many other things, for example. But is there a fragrance? It could be food, but is there something that you relate to and you say, well, I'll never forget that smell, that
and
sense?
I think we don't talk about smell enough because it's so essential. Like I'm thinking right now, you're in New York, the smell when you're walking down the street, the hot dog water, the mix.
Yeah.
Like, that's New York, but that's New York.
Sure.
I'm thinking like lemons a lot when I'm down in southern Italy, or the salt air. Also the sounds when you hear the bells, or the ambulance sounds different, or I was in Puglia, which is in southern Italy, about a month ago, and we were just filming a little promo. I didn't make this up. I didn't pay anybody. The church bells start ringing. 10 seconds later, someone starts singing opera.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, am I in a movie?
Unbelievable.
And we recorded it, but that's, I lost hearing. That's okay. That is it's all those surprises that we get.
I love it.
But it's so funny when you're talking about smell.
Yeah.
I was thinking of my mom, and I had opened her drawer, next to her bed. Mm-hmm. And you know what her smell was? Oil of Olay. I don't know if you know that.
Sure.
Lotion.
Oil of Olay. Yeah.
And I was like, when you think of iconic smell, like things that bring me back.
Right.
Oil of Olay makes me think of my mom.
Isn't that fun? It's interesting. I remember opening up my grandmother. She was a wonderful person. And every once in a while, she would want to go into her purse to get something, to give me a candy or something.
Of course,
and I always remember that she had a fragrance in there. And I think it was lavender. And I could remember that. And, it just brings it all back. Just a scent. It
really does. It really does. And, and I try to always say it's a good memory, not to be sad. Like, we were so lucky to have that, or have these travels, and to appreciate it.
Kathy, before we run, because this has been so much fun, give everybody another preview. I know you talked about it, the new show coming up, Dream of Europe in January.
Dream of Europe is coming out in January on PBS stations. You can go to dreamofeurope.com soon. It'll tell you when it's playing where. Yep. Dream of Italy, you can get on pbs.org, PBS app, or we're putting all the episodes, almost all of them are on YouTube, so anyone can see them. And there's a companion travel guide, so you can do a lot of the things I went and did too. So if I travel to Greece, if I plan a trip to Greece, will you be able to interview me in the homeland, and I could talk about family and so forth? We should do it. Definitely. Where are you from in Greece? Where in Greece? Well, my grandfather was from an area near Larissa, Greece, northern Greece. Okay. My dad was born there, came to America when he was 10 years old, and got into the travel business. My father had three travel agencies in Boston, Lowell, Massachusetts, and in Athens. Fascinating. And he became friends with Aristotle Onassis and represented Olympic Airlines in the Boston area. And so Dad was a real travel. And every time I would make plans for traveling with my family, old-fashioned, I'd pick up the phone. I know. And I would call the airlines. I'd make the reservations, and I'd do my own itinerary. I'd print it all out. Travel is the best. That's part of the joy of it. Yeah, it really is. Greece is, talk about just layers and layers of something extraordinary. Well, I will meet you in Greece then. I will. Well, I'll look forward to that. Kathy McCabe, congratulations on all the good things you're doing. God bless you and your family. Happy travels, safe travels. And we look forward to watching you on PBS in January, or certainly throughout the year, okay? Thank you. Thanks, Ernie. Thanks so much. A pleasure. Have a wonderful time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. Watch that show, okay? Take care. Bye. If Ernie says so. Thanks, Kathy. Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage.
Plus, your super light and ultra durable pocket hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.